This is CJSW's Municipal election coverage, your audio guide to Calgary's 2025 election. This series gives you interviews with candidates running for office, exploring the people, policies, and issues that will shape Calgary's future. We're broadcasting from CJSW 90.9 FM, located at the University of Calgary, on the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta. Before we begin, we would like to remind listeners that the views expressed in this podcast are those of the candidates and the interview subjects, and not those of CJSW or its staff. Today, we're going to a place where longtime residents share sidewalks with young families, the image of history meeting possibility. Today, we're going to Ward 6. Ward 6 stretches across Calgary's southwest, from the inner suburbs all the way to the city's western edge. Conversations about road safety, transit systems, and affordability are front and center. The communities included in Ward 6 are Aspen Woods, Christie Park, Coach Hill, Cougar Ridge, Discovery Ridge, Glamorgan, Glenbrook, Glendale, Medicine Hill, Patterson, Signal Hill, Springbank Hill, Spruce Cliff, Strathcona Park, West Springs, Westgate, and Wildwood. We went directly to the citizens of Ward 6 to ask them what they're feeling this election season.
We really love to be there. Yeah, it's really, we used to live in northeast of Calgary, so now that we moved to southwest, it's a little bit different community, and it's very peaceful.
Great
Yeah.
so far, yeah.
So far no issue.
It would be nice to get like a front store in order to grow your business, because like more of the processes are just like applications online, so you never actually get to see a person or like actually to tell your story. So it just makes it really hard. So it would be nice if there were some sort of like incentive for the grocery stores to actually like get like more small businesses into like their shelves.
Transit to Mount Royal, that would be amazing if they could work on that. And I don't know, probably higher acceptance for your universities would be nicer. A little bit more broad on that, I think would be good. And you're in PR?
Now that we've heard what's on the minds of some Ward 6 residents, let's turn to the people hoping to represent them. We reached out to nominated candidates and trustees running in the 2025 general election to participate in this podcast. The following interviews feature only those candidates who responded and were available to participate within our production timeline. To ensure consistency, we selected about 1 minute of each candidate's response to include in this episode. The audio is presented unedited, and we've aimed to fairly represent each participant's message and voice. We remain committed to providing space for all voices and encourage voters to learn more about every candidate by visiting electionscalgary.ca. Due to personal reasons, Richard Pootman stepped down from his role as Ward 6 councillor this term. The communities in Ward 6 were divided between Sonia Sharp, Courtney Walcott, and Courtney Penner to ensure they had representation until this election. Without an incumbent candidate in the running, there are a few candidates hoping to represent Ward 6 this term. Now, it's time to hear from the candidates themselves. We asked each of them the same set of questions to help you compare their priorities, values, and vision for Ward 6. On social services, what do you believe is the city's role in supporting vulnerable Calgarians through social services such as mental health support and harm reduction? From independent candidate Joanne Burse.
Well, that's a great question. So I do think the city has a role in supporting social services, especially the housing of homeless people, making sure that there's programs available for supports and therapies to those that are most vulnerable. And, with respect to harm reduction, we need to do everything possible to help people to get through their addictions, homelessness, and make sure that they're in a safe space to be able to thrive.
From independent candidate John Pantazopoulos.
So I think it's from a prioritization perspective when I think of that, putting that capital forward, because that builds into safety. If you have a safe downtown and a safe Calgary, you want people to move here. That means business, and you're actually helping people survive and get out of poverty and other illnesses and things. So to me, it's a core responsibility. It's something that the city has to take a lead on. And I think given our entrepreneurial nature in Calgary, given our young population, and we're a city of innovators, let's take an innovation approach. Let's actually invest capital. Let's actually invest the time and effort and not just depend on the province and the feds and other organizations. We have to be that leader.
From the Ward 6 candidate representing a Calgary party, Inam Tija.
The most expensive place someone can spend the night is in an emergency room. The second most expensive place somebody can spend the night is in a corrections facility. The third most expensive place someone can spend the night is in a shelter. It's actually cheaper for our whole system if we provide folks with housing and all of the wraparound services needed for them to maintain housing. I also think it's a responsibility for us to keep people alive while they're on their housing journeys. And so when it comes to things like harm reduction, safe consumption, and other services that allow people to, stay alive while we're providing those services to them to get them into housing and to get them on a path to recovery, I think that's critical. Working at the drop-in center, I don't forget the first time that I had to use naloxone to revive someone. And I certainly haven't forgotten the first time that didn't work. And so, voters in Ward 6 in Calgary can trust that these issues are top of mind for me, and these are issues that I'm going to be casting my vote as a councillor on.
On affordable housing, what specific policies or initiatives would you support to improve housing affordability and accessibility in Calgary? From Joanne Burse.
Affordable housing is definitely a problem in Calgary. I think we have an affordable housing and rental shortage in Calgary. And, you've heard about blanket rezoning. Blanket rezoning is the hot topic. I'm hearing at every door. I am not in favor of blanket rezoning per se. I think the way it was put through was unfair, and 88% of people that provided feedback were against that policy. But blanket rezoning is creating it's increasing supply, which is the intention of the policy. Where I have an issue with the policy is that I don't believe it's creating affordable housing. When you're developing on very expensive land, putting new services and infrastructure in place doesn't create affordable housing for those that most need it. I think the city should be focusing on more purpose-built building, increasing the rental supply, and making sure they're working with builders and developers that are working to assist those that need lower income housing.
From John Pantazopoulos.
But if we spend smarter, then that means rents can moderate, because the rental pool, you don't have to add the $50 per month because your property taxes went up $50. The homeowner, first-time homeowner, can go in and get a certain type of mortgage because your property taxes are lower, or they've stayed flat year over year. So guess what? As your salary increases, so it's a critical component into that whole calculation. You're removing the bureaucracy, making sure that we can get homes built. We have enough private enterprise here in the city, and we have to focus on that. Let them unleash the power, which we experienced last year. 25,000 doors, that's absolutely amazing. I mean, that again, we rebuilt the city of Red Deer in 1 year. And rinse, wash, repeat in 2025, they're probably going to do the same. So we have to get out of their way and make sure that we provide good services at a good cost-effective rate, and it'll help address affordability in the city of Calgary.
From Inam Tija.
There's a few policies that I think the city needs to be doing better on affordable housing. One is we need to be pre-zoning the land before we give it to affordable housing providers. And two is we need to work with all levels of government to ensure that the funding for affordable housing isn't done on a per unit basis, but rather done on a per bedroom basis. Because right now the incentive is to build a bunch of 1-bedroom units rather than units that are more suitable for families. Onto the market side, this is where supply and demand is really important. I have a background in housing economics. I did that during my Master's of Public Policy, and we really have a big supply and demand imbalance in our city. So we need to bring online a bunch more housing supply. The easiest and most effective way to do this is transit-oriented development. In Ward 6, we have a lot of opportunities to do this along the Blue Line. There's the old AMA building by 45th Street Station, and though it's technically just outside of Ward 6, the empty plot of land by Westbrook Station, both of these make a lot of sense for much more housing, generally speaking.
On transportation, what is your vision for improving traffic flow and public transit in your ward and across the city? From Joanne Burse.
Well, last fall I went to Chicago, and what an amazing city that was. And I do believe that every city that is, functions well has a good transit system. So we do need to expand our transit across the city. I think we need to do better at increasing frequency and service to new areas, to established areas, and expanding some of the lines that we have in place. I definitely would like to see a transit line go out to the airport. I know in my ward, Ward 6, we have the Blue Line, and there are plans to extend that as well. And with the immense amount of densification happening in Springbank Hill and West Springs, new transit routes and that extension of the Blue Line is essential.
From John Pantazopoulos.
The reason a green line, those mega projects, investing in boat trail, because now you've got several wards. You've got all Calgarians participating as best as we can. I mean, at the end of the day, a road in the southwest generally doesn't help somebody in the northwest. However, it does in that there's better traffic flows and it allows people to get to downtown or wherever they're going in Calgary. So I think, that redoubling down on transit, particularly as we go from 1.7 to 2 million people, we don't want to have gridlock. There's nothing worse. If we have a city that you have mobility, we were just talking earlier about the Arts Common and then potentially with the rink in a few years. Well, what an amazing bringing all these Calgarians downtown from all the different quadrants. And if you have a seamless experience on public transit, that's fantastic. It reduces traffic. It just allows you from a safety perspective because the C train and the buses are that much more busy. So we have to invest capital into public transit. And I think the projects that have a multitude of ward impact are the best. Start with that, and then we can work down the pecking order.
From Inam Tija.
So Calgary is growing by about 100,000 people per year, and Ward 6 is growing rapidly, particularly in the West District area. We need to have a plan that doesn't just add all new cars to our streets and clog our congestion, but actually gets people where they're going. And so for that, we need to prioritize things like rapid transit, like active transit, and also be smarter about the way that we move cars on our streets. When it comes to big transit projects, I think we need the Green Line. I think we need to connect the Blue Line to the airport. And I also think we need to have some extensions of our MAX rapid transit grid. In Ward 6 specifically, I'd like to see the MAX Teal run up Bow Trail from Westbrook Station, and I'd like to see the creation of a north-south connector connecting West District to 69th Street to West Hill Shopping Plaza. I also think we need to be prioritizing the quality of our transportation, and that means making sure that we're maintaining our roads, but not just our roads, also our pathways and our sidewalks, and same thing for snow clearing.
On public safety, how would you balance community safety with calls for accountability and reform in our police, fire, and emergency services? From Joanne Burse.
So again, as our population grows, we are seeing a decrease in the number of first responders on the streets. We need to make sure that as a city council, as city administration, that we are supporting our first responders, making sure that communities around Calgary are safe, making sure our first responders are safe. And I do believe we need to make sure that we do have more funding for first responders in Calgary.
From John Pantazopoulos.
So I think it's a multifaceted problem. I think it's not one simple solution. We do this and it'll work. Every single city and every jurisdiction struggles with it. But again, going back to Calgary, a city of entrepreneurs, a young city, a city that's growing, we have a chance. We don't have problems dating back hundreds of years. We're a pretty darn new city in relative, so we can have a new approach, and we can address it, focusing on police, focusing on community services, and really addressing all those root problems in consultation, of course, with the province and the feds. Because, as we said before, think about mental health. That is a provincial jurisdiction. The criminal justice system being a federal jurisdiction as well. We have to make sure that we're talking to those folks. But being a leader, one of the largest cities in Canada, we have an opportunity, and we can bring that entrepreneurial spirit and say, let's try something different. Let's address these problems, not just by focusing on whether it's safety, police officers and things. You can actually focus on the whole portfolio that makes a city pretty fantastic.
From Inam Tija.
When it comes to the calls for police reform and such, I think it's really important that we maintain a community policing model rather than going down the pathway of the states where it's a militarized police force. We want our police to represent our citizens, and that means being a diverse police force. That means having a gender balance, a balance of people from different backgrounds, and it means that we have police that recognize that it's not them versus society, but they're members of our community, and that everyone that they're policing and working with in community are part of their neighborhood, part of their society. And so I'm a strong believer that community policing models are far better than the militarized police force models.
On environment. How would you approach environmental sustainability in Calgary, particularly around land development, waste management, and water conservation? From Joanne Burse.
Well, with development, I think we need to make sure that we're definitely putting land aside for parks. There's a lot of fear in my community that with development will be the loss of parks and green space. And I think as families get out to play and recreate in the area, they want to know that there's going to be a park, there's going to be pathways, and those need to be, kept and maintained, but also in hit. We don't do enough to conserve our water in Calgary. And I agree. I believe we could do more. If we are, if we're going to be away, make sure that the water's turned off. And maybe those folks don't get charged for the water they're not using while they're not at home or on holidays. As our city grows, there's going to be more of a drain on our water. And I just think it is going to be top of mind for all governments in the years to come. Water conservation is very important.
From John Pantazopoulos.
And if you want to help in reducing emissions, have a wonderful and efficient C-train. Have a wonderful, efficient public transit system. That's something that is core. It allows people to jump on a train, to jump on a bus, to get to where they're going, and it frees up space. So now you've got an economic benefit where you're not wasting time in traffic. And guess what? The marginal cost to speak in business for one more person on a C-train is essentially zero. So the more people that use it makes it safer, makes it more efficient and more profitable, cost efficient, which then we can reinvest. From a water perspective, we experienced, I think last year caught us all a bit off guard that, we look up in the mountains and we see the snow and all of a sudden, we're in drought conditions and we have water restrictions. And every single Calgarian sort of woke up, myself included, and said, oh my goodness, you mean that there could run out at some point? Now, compounded with the water main break, and there's a whole bunch of sort of other issues that came in there. So I think it comes down, the city is one of the largest landowners, whether it's taking care of golf courses and things. And it's just, again, using a innovative approach.
From Inam Tija.
So I think when it comes to the environment side, there's the prevention aspect, which is reducing your emissions, and then the adaptation aspect, which is how do we deal with the changing climate. On the prevention side, I think there's two main things the city can do. One is on land use. Calgary is the city in Canada that destroys the most wetlands due to urban sprawl. It's a real shame that we continue to grow outwards. I think we need to get off of this sprawl and work on how do we build up. The other thing is transportation emissions, and that's a similar problem. We keep being sprawling out and having longer and longer commutes. We need to invest in transit, invest in growing up as a city to make sure that we're reducing our emissions. That being said, maintaining the blue bin program, maintaining the green bin program, ensuring that we're supporting businesses that do work in the circular economy, and encouraging our city to lower waste on the whole when it comes to city services is also quite critical.
On education. While education is largely a provincial responsibility, how do you see the city collaborating with school boards to support accessible and quality education in your ward? From Joanne Burse.
Oh, that's a good question. So I do believe that we should be working more with the province, the city should be working more with the province on doing some collaborative building when it comes to new schools. I think we could save some money by doing projects where we have a school with a community rec center or a library and make it more of a community hub situation where the schools are used during the day and these other facilities are used at night for the community. So there's definitely a lot of room, a lot of things we could do to work more collaboratively with the provinces.
From John Pantazopoulos.
Many years ago, myself and many parents in Ward 6 advocated very hard for the construction of schools. We went to Edmonton once a month. We met with the Minister of Education on several occasions. We met with every MLA who would listen, and we were advocating and fighting for schools to be built because we said, look, and we actually brought in the city as well, saying you have a duty to make sure the services are there. And it was just an amazing when you bring everybody in a room together. And here's the problem. It's not just the provincial. How do we accelerate construction? And the city helped that. And the province said we can get funding. So you had this. I recognized early in my career that if you just focus on the province, you are going to fail. You focus on the city, you're going to fail when it comes to public education. You have to bring the two levels of government together. And that is critical. And I saw it. The school in our community, had it not been, I remember a meeting, we had our counselor, we had our trustee and our MLA, and in a boardroom at City Hall, and we literally kind of locked the door, quite frankly, and we sat in the back and said, okay, everybody, let's talk. We're going to leave here with the school being built. And I kid you not, we left an hour or two later, and there was a path forward. Of course, they couldn't approve it right there. You need to go through Treasury and all the sorts. But we actually had that collaboration, and everybody realized they had a purpose and a point, where coming into that meeting, it was, no, that's provincial jurisdiction. No, that's a municipal. So I think it's core and critical to create the spaces, to create the communities, and make sure that services are there to accommodate the schools.
From Inam Tija.
There are a lot of overcrowded classrooms in Ward 6 from every age, elementary school to high school. And so as a city, we don't have control over what the province does on the education file, but we do have the opportunity to work with them when it comes to setting aside land in the municipal reserve land for new schools, as well as encouraging the province to actually invest our property dollars in Calgary. So 30% of Calgarians' property taxes go to the province, and there's no obligation for them to spend it in Calgary, and often they don't. And I think it's going to be incumbent on the next city council to actually get a better deal for Calgarians and make sure that we're standing up to the province, particularly because the next provincial election will likely be won or lost in Calgary, that we're getting a commitment that they're going to spend Calgarians' property tax dollars in Calgary on things like schools.
On arts and culture. How will you support local arts and culture as a part of Calgary's identity? From Joanne Burse.
Arts and culture creates it's a cultural fabric for our city, and I think without it, it wouldn't be the Calgary that we know today. I've done a lot of work with nonprofits, and in particular, a youth music organization called the Calgary Fiddlers Association. They do great work. Arts and culture goes beyond just performing. It can touch people's lives as well. So, I know there's a lot of programs that deal with health and wellness. They work with seniors. Music is important for everyone, and we need to make sure that it remains an important part of Calgary's cultural fabric.
From John Pantazopoulos.
I think in order for Calgary to continue to be one of the best cities in the world, we have to have a very thriving, not only business community, but also arts and culture. And I think one of the best things that are happening in downtown Calgary is the new Arts Common. It's one of the biggest investments in arts in Canadian history. It rivals Massey Hall in Toronto. And what it allows is a city, as we grow from 1.7 million over to 2 million and beyond, and along with our province, that having somewhere where local artists can go and practice their trade. And when you've got 20, 30, 40 stages, it just centralizes. It brings people together. You want to have that instead of folks having to leave and go somewhere else. I think one of the best things I've heard is the Calgary Stampede. What a transition, where when I moved to Calgary 25 years ago to today, it's almost become now more of a music festival, and which is amazing. So now you've got artists from around the province, around the country coming here and wanting to perform. And then, of course, you build up that local. And I think from a city perspective is we are the biggest champions. We can't depend on the federal government. We can't depend on the provincial government to focus just on Calgary.
From Inam Tija.
I also think we need to take big swings as a city when it comes to our arts and culture. Things like the Arts Common, things like Glenbow Museum renovations, spaces for the arts are critical. And then beyond that, I also think there's a lot that we need to be doing on the micro level. There's a lot of folks who I know who are buskers, who like to play the patios in the summer and, put on little mini theater pop-up productions. And so the city can't just be focused on the big stuff, although that's important. We also need to look at how do we support a lot of the small arts and culture kind of mini productions and such, because those bring such a amount of life to our neighborhoods. One of my favorite things that we got to do with our community association is have a local artist paint our electrical boxes with, beautiful art that they sourced from community meetings and ideas. And so that brings me joy when I walk my dog every day. And I think that's a great example of some of the small stuff the city can be doing on arts and culture.
On community. In what ways do you try to give back to your community? From Joanne Burse.
Giving back to my community, that's one of the reasons why I'm running. I've lived in Ward 6 for over 30 years. Never thought in a million years that I would run for public office. But, having spent 25 years off and on with my community association, volunteering my time with parent councils throughout the ward, and, being a Rotarian. So I give back all over the city to social service agencies. And, this is just the next step for me. My kids are 28 and 30, and I've run my own small business for 20 years. I'm in a position to shift gears and really be the voice for Ward 6 residents that I know that they need.
From John Pantazopoulos.
And the best compliment I can have is when my children see us volunteering and spending that time, and they recognize it is for the common good, and I get to extend that to my children, just like my parents instilled in me. You must give back to community. And my experience with that community is I served on the Calgary Parking Authority, so my introduction to civic politics. And it was a wonderful introduction because here as a business professional, I said, look, I can't give back to the city. And people reached out and said, yes, you can. And I encourage so many professionals of all shapes and sizes, this is your opportunity. Give back to the city of Calgary. Join a board, whatever you're interested in. Arts, perfect. Parks, perfect. The airport authority, if that's your knitting, fantastic. Give back, give your time. Everybody's got an hour. Everybody's got opportunity, and you bring your experience, and the best decisions are made when there's diversity of thought. We don't need 100 business professionals. We don't need 100 social workers. We need a combination. We need a mix of everything to have a wonderful opportunity to promote the city and give back.
From Inam Tija.
Being a member of the Ismaili Muslim community, we have a concept called seva, which is giving back to our communities. And so from a young age, I was volunteering in our place of worship. But more recently in my adult life, I was serving as the vice president of my community association, the Coach Hill Patterson Heights Community Association, for the last couple years. And through that, it was a great experience to work on issues like traffic safety in our community, put on events like our movie in the park, and, give back to a neighborhood that I grew up in and that gave me so much. Also doing my day job at the drop-in center, it's tough work, but it's the kind of work that I feel really good about doing because it feels necessary. It's important to our city that we solve things like our housing challenges.
We note that Indigenous groups have their own bodies of governance, but as we are on shared land, we dedicated a question to decolonization. What is your understanding of Calgary's responsibilities under the Truth and Reconciliation Calls to Action? From Joanne Burse.
Well, I think we need to do everything possible to work on that relationship with our Indigenous peoples. And again, we talked about culture. I think they bring an amazing cultural fabric to our city, to our province. We can learn a lot from them, their knowledge and their closeness with the land. And, for me, I'm happy that we have a Truth and Reconciliation Day. I would like to see us as Calgarians, Albertans, Canadians doing more action. So it's nice to have a day to reflect on truth and reconciliation, but I think we need to do more. Maybe that's volunteering with an Indigenous organization on that day. Let's support our Indigenous brothers and sisters and, keep doing a great job in creating diversity and inclusion in our city.
From John Pantazopoulos.
So it really comes down to building that trust. Engagement is trust. It's not finding unanimity. If you get 100 people in a room, you're going to have 100 different opinions, and that's okay. But if you build trust and you build conversation and you can actually collaborate and get things done for the betterment of both groups, how many groups are involved, whether it's 1, 10, or 100, that is where it comes down to. So when I think of that duty, things like duty to consult, an important initiative that recognizing our uniqueness in the country. I can't think of another city where we have such a unique perspective that literally within our borders or just bumping up to our borders is a very different jurisdiction and requires different interaction. And I think, Calgary can be that leader in Canada. We can show that it can work. We can get progress. You see all the development that's happening there, and Calgarians get to enjoy it, myself included, every day when you drive down the ring road. So it's continuing that. And I think it's that trust, it's that respect, and you have to keep building that. And that's how you get things done. And we'll continue to grow Calgary as we grow and build our relationship.
From Inam Tija.
I think from the city point of view, we need to be serious about reconciliation. It can't just be a box that we check. I also think that it's incumbent and just really, really important when we talk about reconciliation to note that Indigenous folks are way overrepresented in our homeless serving system of care. It is heartbreaking to understand the level of trauma that some folks have faced because of the government's actions towards them, towards their parents, their grandparents, and how that has led this community to seek shelter services or remain unhoused for far too long. And if we're going to be serious about doing the work for reconciliation, to me that means housing needs to be critical. A housing first approach needs to be critical, and also culturally relevant supports need to be critical.
Finally, we gave each candidate a moment to share any closing remarks. From Joanne Burse.
I'm more than excited to be the voice that Ward 6 residents need. And again, if I'm tasked with voting on issues at City Council, I will do whatever possible to reach out to residents, online surveys, forums. I plan to start a Ward 6 Youth Advisory Council, bringing in 15 to 25 or 30-year-olds, get their views on the issues that are top of mind for the city. And they always come up with great ideas. And lastly, I think we need to do a better job of supporting our business community. I just did a survey last week for young people, and the number one concern to those that responded to the survey was affordability and jobs and economy. So we need to be bringing tech innovations, more trades. Let's create jobs. Let's make sure that our young people stay in Calgary and that this is a place that people want to be for the future.
From John Pantazopoulos.
Yeah, I think, mentioning before, we've been campaigning for about 7-8 months. We've knocked on 25,000 doors. I'm on my third pair of shoes, and we have 1.4 million steps and counting. And, the message that you get at all the doors. It's pretty amazing. Every community is a little different, but every community you can hear sort of the same themes. What does it say? History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And you can hear that in the different communities. And the three initiatives that we hear a lot of from Calgarians, particularly in Ward 6, smart spending, thoughtful development, and safe streets. And they're not just sort of two words. They really mean something. When you come down to smart spending, it just comes down to it is a not a sustainable path, an 8.9% increase in property tax with a 10% decrease in services, a lower service standard. That's not acceptable. You can't have that in business. You can't have that in your personal life. You have to, if we invest more, you have to get a better output. I want to bring a business lens. What that means is not spending zero, it's spending smarter. It's holding to account, like we do in business, like you do in your personal side, is spending smarter, making sure it's outcomes-based, zero-based budgeting, making sure that when we come to Calgarians, we have maximized the utility, the dollars invested.
From Inam Tija.
I think it's important to just tell people why I'm running. I'm running to make sure that Calgary can be a city where everyone thrives. My family came to Canada in the 70s, and my dad lived in affordable housing. My mom studied in our libraries, and my grandparents took transit to get to everywhere. And these key city services and pieces of infrastructure really allowed my family to thrive. My dad was able to open a small business that he still runs today, and it's allowed me to live a really, really good life. This place is a place of opportunity, and I worry sometimes that it's slipping away because housing has become much less affordable, and we've seen our transit struggle to keep up with our city's growth. But if we're serious about being a place where everyone can thrive and the next generation of Calgarians can seize the opportunities, we need to make sure those basic building blocks are in place.
That wraps up our conversations with your ward candidates. We hope their insights help you feel more informed heading into the 2025 general election. Now, we're shifting our focus to another important group of elected officials, school board trustees. Trustees play a critical role in shaping the direction of public education. They're responsible for setting priorities, approving budgets, and making decisions that impact students, families, and communities across their school jurisdictions. While their work often happens behind the scenes, it has a direct effect on the quality of education in Calgary. Just like councillors, trustees are elected during the municipal election. To find out which board you vote for, whether it's the Calgary Board of Education, Calgary Catholic School District, or another publicly funded board, you can visit electionscalgary.ca and use the Where Do I Vote tool. We reached out to all nominated trustee candidates running in this ward, inviting them to participate in this podcast. The interviews you're about to hear include only those candidates who responded and were available within our production timeline. To keep things fair and concise, we've selected about 1 minute from each candidate's response. The audio is presented unedited, and we've done our best to ensure every participant's voice is clearly and accurately represented. Let's now hear from the trustee candidates running in this ward. What are your top 3 priorities for Calgary schools, and how do you plan to address them during your term? Running as a public school board trustee candidate, we have Patricia Bulger.
Well, if I'm re-elected, my priorities are to continue to advocate for new learning spaces. So we were successful in our last term of advocating for more than 15 new schools and an addition of modulars. But with a growing student population, we really need additional learning spaces in our growing city.
Running in the Calgary Catholic School District for Wards 6 and 8, Lori Iavanelli.
My top 3 priorities for Calgary Catholic school students would be funding, classroom complexity, and infrastructure. Regarding funding, the goal would be to secure equitable and sustainable funding for Alberta students. Our classrooms today are quite complex, and the goal there would be to provide supports to meet student needs in today's increasingly complex classrooms. Finally, regarding infrastructure, our schools are currently at 85% capacity. Basically, our schools are all full. Calgary Catholic needs new schools, and the goal is to secure new school builds in our overcrowded classrooms. During my tenure as a Calgary Catholic School Board trustee, I have, along with my team, secured equitable enrollment-based funding to ensure sustainability and fairness. So the current funding model has been changed because of the great advocacy that was done with our board, and that has led to more equitable numbers to meet student needs.
How will you ensure equitable access to quality education for students across all communities, including those from marginalized or underserved backgrounds? From Patricia Bulger.
Well, great question. Well, the CBE is the largest school board in Western Canada and expecting over 146,000 students this coming September. So we welcome each and every student into our school. And equity is a focus within the CBE, so no student is left behind, really, with regards to being able to pay school fees or field trips. Everything will be taken care of to ensure all kids have access.
From Lori Iavanelli.
We as trustees are elected in our wards, so I would be the trustee representing wards 6 and 8. But when we sit and come together as a board of trustees, a group of 7 voices representing the entire city, as well as Cochrane, Airdrie, and Chestermere, we represent every single student across the district. So currently we have 64,000 students in Calgary Catholic, and the decisions that we make will impact every single student, regardless of socioeconomic background or where they live. The decisions, like I said, budgetary, infrastructure, wellness, are about every single child. And our 4 board priorities are faith formation, Indigenous education, student wellness, and student success. And we gear our decisions around those 4 priorities, mainly so that every one of the 64,000 students across the district can achieve student success, as different as it is for every single student.
How will you engage with parents, teachers, and students, and the broader community to ensure transparency and responsiveness in decision-making? From Patricia Bulger.
Well, I think as a trustee, you want to be accessible and available. So those are 2 key things, which I think you just make yourself available to parents and to citizens and stakeholders within the community. I think attending school council meetings is a great way to get a gauge and really get to interact with parents and administration and get a good feel for the school and what needs are there and what concerns might be popping up.
From Lori Iavanelli.
Thank you. I feel as a trustee, I am rooted in faith, grounded in community, and focused on students. The decisions happen at the board table after we're given information and assess that information and ask questions about that information. However, in my 8 years as a trustee, I believe that the best decisions that I make are the ones after being immersed in the community and being engaged with my community, with my schools, with my parishes, so that I can hear the voice and the needs of the constituents that I serve. This role is about children and students. And, I'll use the term loosely when I say babies, but they're young children. And to be able to make a decision that can impact their success is truly a privilege. And I can only make the very best decisions when I'm familiar with the community that I serve and what they need best.
What is your position on the role of schools in addressing issues such as mental health, inclusion, and anti-racism? How would you support initiatives in these areas? From Patricia Bulger.
Well, it's a very important area. So as trustees, we do govern through policy. So first of all, we make sure those policies are in place, which they are. And then the other key component is our annual education plan, which absolutely addresses well-being. And one of the other focus areas is truth and reconciliation, diversity and inclusion. So that really drives our budget and drives our school system. So those are critical elements to ensure that those topics are addressed.
From Lori Iavanelli.
So mental health is a very hot topic because it's very evident in all of our schools with many of our students. One thing that the Board of Trustees has done, again, this last term, was a motion to hire a district doctor. It's something that we talked about for quite a number of years. We got information about it. We put aside money in the budget, and then the entire board unanimously voted and approved the hiring of a district doctor. That doctor helps teachers, helps students, and addresses some of the mental health concerns. It's just another resource that is available to serve the district and to serve our students. Another area of mental wellness is the advocacy that we've done in securing wellness workers in 21 of our elementary schools. That came at a cost of $1.8 million. And again, it's something that the current Board of Trustees that I'm a part of really advocated for and pushed for.
With ongoing concerns about education funding and class sizes in Alberta, how will you advocate for the resources schools need while working within budget constraints? From Patricia Bulger.
Great question. Well, yeah, as you mentioned, Alberta education is the lowest per student funding in the country, which is concerning. And with the impacts of inflation, it has had an impact with regards to the amount of staff you can hire and the supports you can provide for students. So I think we do need to continue to advocate in this area. We've had some progress over the past couple of years with adjustments to the funding formula and some other formulas, but ultimately the base does need to be bigger to support inflation, growing enrollment, increased student complexity, and newcomers to Canada who might be learning English as a second language. So establishing great relationships with government and continue to educate and inform them of the needs of the system.
From Lori Iavanelli.
So when we talk about equity in student funding, we mean equitable like students across the country so that each student has the opportunity to learn and grow and meet their own potential and with the resources and supports that they need. As far as class sizes go, again, our teachers do tremendous work in the classrooms. Class sizes are a bit of a problem, but they are not the only problem. The bigger issue currently is classroom complexity. If we could lessen the pressure with more EAs or more classrooms, more teachers, smaller size classrooms, a lot of problems would be solved. Again, it's not just about the number of kids in a classroom, but the number of complexities in a classroom. And we need to be able to meet the teachers at where they're at, meet their needs so that they can meet student needs so that everybody can be successful.
Is there anything else you want people to know? From Patricia Bulger.
I would like to say that serving for the past 4 terms has been invaluable. It is a steep learning curve and have learned a tremendous amount about the system, operating with government. And I think we have formed a strong relationship with the ministry, which is critical moving forward. This government does move quite quickly. And so it's very helpful if we are well prepared to support our students and government in supporting Calgary Board of Education students. And then lastly, I would say that regardless of what choices you do make for your own family and your own children, that we know that public education serves the common good and benefits the community and the city and makes us stronger and more resilient.
From Lori Iavanelli.
Being a trustee has been a tremendous privilege and an honor, and I love serving the district that I believe in since 2017. I believe in the precious gift of publicly funded Catholic education. I believe in the over 64,000 students entrusted in our care, and I would be honored to continue to serve the constituents of Wards 6 and 8. It would be my goal, should I be reelected, to protect the gift of publicly funded education so students can continue to learn, pray, and grow in the presence of God. I would advocate and continue to advocate on behalf of students so they are equipped with the resources and programs to ensure individual success. I would continue to listen with compassion, to understand the needs and concerns of constituents, and to effectively bring their perspectives to the board table. And I would continue to collaborate with shareholders by building strong and positive working relationships with the goal of ensuring students so that they have the very best in a publicly funded Catholic education. I can be counted on as a committed and effective advocate to meet student and teacher needs by addressing classroom complexities, equitable and sustainable funding, and new school builds. And I can be counted on with a teacher's insight, a mother's heart, a leader's integrity, and a community's voice.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of CJSW's municipal election coverage. I hope today's conversation brought you a little closer to your community and the people who want to lead it. I'm your host, Emma, and all of the source material for this episode can be found in the episode description. Remember to visit electionscalgary.ca for more information on every candidate and to check your voter registration. Again, we would like to remind listeners that the views expressed in this podcast are those of the candidates and the interview subjects, and not those of CJSW or its staff. Make sure to visit cjsw.com or the CJSW app to check out our voter education episode and our exclusive mayoral debate. Until then, take care, and please vote, follow, and share.